Hey, Hare Krishna, dear ladies. Welcome to the July Urban Devi Sangha and Women's Discussion Group. A special welcome to those joining us for the first time. If you are joining us for the first time, please write in the chat so that we can all say hello. I promise we're a very friendly and welcoming group. My name is Damodar Priya Devi Dasi, and I co-host this monthly gathering with our dear Rukmini Walker and Surbi Govinda Devi Dasi. So let me introduce our guest speaker for today. I know that a lot of you know her, but for those that don't, just bear with me. So Rukmini Walker is a unique force of change, a catalyst for women's spiritual empowerment, and an ambassador of interfaith dialogue. She is the visionary founder of Urban Devi Collective, which is this vibrant platform that resonates with all of our seekers in all walks of life. She is one of the first disciples of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who introduced the path of bhakti to the Western world in 1965. So she has walked in the footsteps of a true spiritual pioneer. Rukmini's life is an offering of devotion, compassion, and a testament to the boundless potential of the human spirit. With every endeavor she undertakes, she leaves an indelible mark on the world, awakening hearts and transforming lives. And with that, I'll introduce her topic for today, which is open-hearted curiosity versus heart-blocking assumptions. So Rukmini will be helping us answer these questions. How can we hear with more innocence, like a child with open-hearted curiosity? How can we avoid falling into the dangerous pitfalls of making assumptions? So thank you so much, Rukmini Walker, for joining us today.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you for being here. So many friends. I'm looking at your beautiful faces, so thank you for being here. I'm going to start by offering a few prayers. Thank you. Chaksunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manavistapitam yena Bhutale. Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamimiti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare. Yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Hare Krishna. So the other morning, I was actually listening to a talk by Srila Prabhupada. I'd been thinking about this topic of assumptions versus curiosity, and I actually heard Prabhupada talk about the importance of inquisitiveness. And I was so happy to hear him say that. And he was talking about how important it is to be inquisitive about the details of Krishna. So because his thesis is, how can you love someone if you don't know anything about that person? So in such a cute and funny way, I always think how Prabhupada talks about how, many people talk about how God is great, but on the bhakti path, we talk about how God is great. So he says, we know his name, we know his address, we know his father's name. So I always find that really cute. So yeah, I call them hooks, but the more things we can learn about Krishna, it helps us to remember him and remember him in those moments, maybe tomorrow when you're falling asleep in the evening, opportunities to remember Krishna. So yeah, his beautiful form, his charming pastimes, his name. But then yeah, if we're eager for Krishna consciousness, we should be eager to find out more about how Krishna's wonderfulness. How is he wonderful? How can he steal my heart? And yeah, so then, this leads me to discuss, well, what about our dealings in this world? Can inquisitiveness help rather than just making assumptions, about myself or about other people, or even about Krishna? Oh, Krishna does, I don't want to bother Krishna. I'll just hold this inside. I don't want to bother him. So yeah, to not make assumptions, right? What would be a typical example? Like, I know what she's thinking about me. I know why he said that in that meeting. I know why she's looking at me like that. And sometimes we can just ask, I'm thinking that you're thinking this about me. Is it true? Maybe after the moment, or, is it true? I'm kind of having a feeling that, and then she might say, no, not at all. I just have a terrible migraine, or my son is ill, or he didn't pass his exam. So I feel like it's so important to stress this idea of open-hearted inquiry, because so many times we find out that what we were thinking was completely or maybe partially wrong. So on the other hand, where there's curiosity about something, we can inquire, when you said this or when you did this, did you mean this? So again, no, I was just doing that because of something completely unrelated, completely off the radar of what I had assumed. So here's the main point that I'd like you to remember from what I have to say today. Curiosity can lead to appreciation, and appreciation is the beginning of gratitude. And gratitude is the beginning of love. Gratitude is like the link between the material and the spiritual. So if we want to go to love of God, if we want to advance on the path of bhakti, we can begin with curiosity, which leads to appreciation, which leads to gratitude, which leads to love. And then on the other hand, making assumptions can lead to fear or misunderstanding, misjudgment, and we kind of devolve into a whole downward spiral. Sometimes we make assumptions about someone, he said, she said, or even assumptions about myself. Maybe I'm thinking, I could never do that. I could never be capable of that. I've always wanted to paint. I've always wanted to write a poem. Or maybe I'd like to attend an early Mangal Arti at a temple, or lead a kirtan, or commit to a certain number of japa, chanting japa, or learn to play harmonium. My friend Ananda Vrindavan, who's our temple president here in Washington, D.C., she said to me once, it was so funny, she said, well, we're all eternal, right? So that means someday I'll learn to play the harmonium. So yeah, but I may put like a block in my own mind or consciousness. I can't do that, but maybe we can give ourselves permission without making that incorrect assumption about ourselves, right? So yeah, sometimes curiosity can lead us to appreciation of someone's situation that may be very different from mine. And maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe I had jumped to a wrong conclusion. So I want to share a story with you. It's a powerful story, I think. This is a story about a man in New York. It was a Sunday morning. Today's Sunday, right? But this is earlier, maybe early Sunday morning, maybe 6 o'clock morning on Sunday. And he's on the subway, and he's all by himself, and it's very quiet on the subway in New York. No one else is on the car. And then this other man gets on the subway car, and he's got a couple of kids, and the kids are just running around in the subway car, making all kinds of noise. And the man who'd been there kind of appreciating the peace and quiet before the other man got on, he was like, oh my God, can't this man control his kids? The kids are running around, and the father just seems to be in a daze, totally oblivious to what his kids are doing. Maybe we've all been in a situation like that, Can't this person control their kids? Maybe it's in a concert, or maybe it's a grocery store. This case, he's on the subway, right? So finally, the first man gets exasperated. He turns to the other man and he says, "Sir, can't you please control your kids? They're being so disturbing and boisterous. And then the second man kind of seems to come out of his daze, and he looks at the other man who asked the question. He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He said, "We just came from," sorry, I'm kind of a softie. He said, "We just came from the hospital and their mother just died." So you see how we can make assumptions. We can be so disturbed in our own Sunday morning or whatever day it is, and completely misjudge, misunderstand, and not understand another person's path, another person's journey that they're going through, the pain that they're carrying, you know? So it's said that one of the greatest sources of conflict is making assumptions. Why did she think I said that? Why did she think I thought that? Or why did she say this or that, or look at me like that? Someone might interface, maybe you work in a hospital or a school or an office or a, courtroom. I'm looking at Dana there, and someone may walk in with a big scowl. I mean, Dana, if you're a lawyer, I'm sure you're used to scowls and frowns, but someone walks in with a big frown, and you might think, oh, she hates me. Why does she hate me? But with a kind inquiry, sometimes right in the moment, sometimes afterwards, you can approach the person and say, "What's on your heart? Is there anything you'd like to talk about?" And sometimes a life can even be turned around or saved by that kind of a caring inquiry. Someone may be thinking, no one cares. Sometimes, even if one person just reaches out to care or to inquire or to check in a caring and sensitive way, sometimes that can change the whole course of someone's life, avert a suicide. So just think about that, Sometimes you're walking into the temple, you're about to go into the kirtan, and you see someone sitting by themselves, just looking depressed with their head hanging down. What's more important, to go enjoy the kirtan or to stop and say, "Hey, is there anything I can do?" How important is that? So that kind of trust is built on small, intimate moments of noticing. I call it radical noticing. Like, and each one of those small moments builds on another small moment of trust. So every time we've built on that moment of trust with some deep listening or some open-hearted inquiry, curiosity, inquiry, it creates a groove, or in Sanskrit, the word would be sanskar. It creates a sanskar, and more trust is then available and accessible to us, or also to that person, because someone stepped in and cared, or because I stepped in and cared. So yeah, those moments of trust build on a next moment of trust. And so meditate for a moment, maybe close your eyes for a moment and think of someone that you trust very, very deeply. Think of someone. It could be, let's say, maybe someone other than your guru. Maybe we would go to the guru, but maybe someone, it could be your mom, your dad, your partner, your kids, or someone you just met, someone you trust very deeply. And how does that feel? Do you feel you're just kind of opening? It's very hard opening, So appreciate them. Let them know. And that appreciation, that gratitude, that trust, it builds a foundation for more trust, more appreciation, more gratitude, more love. Okay, so open your eyes. And then, okay, blink your eyes a bit. Now, maybe close your eyes again and think of someone you don't feel you can trust. Someone in your life. It could be a close relative. It could be someone you met. It could be someone at the temple. It could be someone anywhere. Think of someone you just don't feel you can trust. How does that feel? You feel your heart kind of closing a little bit, shutting down? So, okay, you can open your eyes. Thanks so much. Sometimes that lack of trust can be shifted by me reaching out or you reaching out. Sometimes that kind of prickly, sometimes there's certain people in our lives we feel like, oh, I just have kind of a prickly relationship with this person. Sometimes that can be turned around just by outreach, a little bit of curiosity or outreach, what's on your heart, or something. Just sometimes you can, if you feel like someone's just has some issue with you, sometimes you can just give them a flower or a piece of Mahaprasadam or a Tulsi leaf, and that might just sometimes just bring the whole ice structure down and melt that kind of frozen energy. And yeah, our whole process of bhakti is actually based first on this premise of Shravana Kirtana, which means first deeply hearing, really, really allowing Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's pastimes, his glories to go deeply into our heart, and then repeating what we've heard and trying to clarify misunderstandings, right? Shravanam, chanting. Shravanam is hearing, then chanting, kirtanam, then calling out to Krishna in love, remembering Krishna in a mood of taking shelter. So this is the whole process. So we can try it with Krishna. We can also try it with the other people in our lives, because this is the path to love. And sometimes radical noticing can start with a little tiny inquiry, like, I'm noticing that you're looking a little sad. And she might say, well, no, I'm not sad. I'm hurt, or I'm angry, or I'm just that, like that little inquiry. And then you can say, well, tell me more about it. What's on your heart? And someone, like a whole barricade of feelings may come tumbling down just because of that little curious inquiry. How important is that? And like with donations, they say the main reason people don't give is because nobody ever asked. So I think it's the same thing with feelings. Nobody ever asked. Nobody ever cared. And sometimes, there's so much pain and so many barricaded feelings just because nobody ever asked. So you can also say, was it something I did or something I said? Because maybe it was someone else or something else. And, here I am carrying this thing like a heavy burden. I've got my burden of rocks I'm carrying. Well, it wasn't me at all. It was something else in her life. Or yeah. There's even a funny story about Prabhupada, that someone was pointing to a picture of Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, you just look so sad in this picture. And Prabhupada looked at it and he said, that was a moment of ecstasy. So how we can misunderstand, even a pure devotee like Prabhupada. So sometimes, I said this before, but sometimes we don't want to bother someone. Maybe they'll get offended. But someone who cares wants you to know that they care. And it's not being bothered. And it's not bothering Krishna. Krishna is there. I always say he's like unemployed, sitting in our hearts, waiting for us to turn to him. So Krishna wants us to turn to him. But it's not so much about lip service. It's a real open-hearted, crying to Krishna, not even chanting, but crying our Krishna's names. So yeah, so people want to know, they want to know that someone cares, that's not being bothered. And maybe there's someone who cares, but maybe it's only one or two trusted people. You don't have to have 10,000 friends on Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is. You can have maybe in your life there's one or two trusted people that you can always turn to. A dear friend, my husband Anutama, his dearest friend, a few years ago, he lost his wife, and it was his birthday. This is a sad story. It was his birthday, and he was having dinner with his wife in a restaurant, his wife and her father, and she just had a massive brain aneurysm, and she died. And then they kept her on life support until her kids could get there. But he was just completely so traumatized. And he called, and we're on the other coast. He's in Denver, and he called Anutam in the middle of the night. That kind of friend. And I'm such a crybaby, don't you think? So he called Anutam in the middle of the night, and Anutam said, "I'm getting on the next plane." So that's the kind of friend. You can be a friend like that. You can have one or two friends. You don't need masses of people who are just acquaintances, maybe. And the more you can reach out to show someone trust or care or curiosity, the more their hearts can be open to love and to bhakti. Yeah. So yeah. So maybe it's something like, I'm thinking she's upset with me, but instead she says, "Well, I just came back from the doctor and I had some really unpleasant news," or "I have such a migraine," or "I broke my finger, I'm in terrible pain," or "My son's not doing well in school," or "I've just been fired from my job, I don't know how I'm going to pay the next month's rent," or it could be a 100 other possible causes, right? And sometimes even world wars can start with one spark of an isolated incident. I don't know if you know this, but World War I was touched off by the assassination of a duke from Austria. And it actually, that little spark pushed 6 world powers into war and killed over 17 million soldiers. Just imagine, if there had been some reaching out or, deep hearing, deep listening, peacekeeping, right? Sometimes we hear about a peacekeeping force, but love is the greatest force, right? This kind of inquiry is the greatest force. And in Shrimad Bhagavatam, there's so many incidents where someone assumed something incorrectly. In the 9th canto of Shrimad Bhagavatam, there's a story about 2 young girls, Sharmista and Devyani. And they were swimming together. Typically in India, in the little ponds, girls would be swimming without their clothes on. And so they're having a good old time swimming together, just the girls. And then they see, I guess this is like on a higher planet or something, they see Lord Shiva riding by on his bull, Nandi. So, wow, quick, they have to all scramble to get their clothes back on because they don't want to commit an offense to the great Lord Shiva. And but by mistake, this Sharmista, she put on her girlfriend's clothes, her girlfriend Devyani's dress, and Devyani got really upset, and it led to a huge misunderstanding. And in the Bhagavatam, it says that Devyani tended to have a little bit of an angry nature. "How dare you grab my clothes? Who do you think you are?" So if we can try to be a little more patient and inquire and reserve judgment, then there's more of a chance we can come to a more informed decision, right? Rather than jumping to both hands, both feet, jumping to a conclusion. Imagine jumping into a lake or a pool, right? Jumping in passionately, feet first, versus patiently waiting, watching, maybe dipping a little toe in to inquire, right? Giving the benefit of a doubt. So there's another incident in Shrimad Bhagavatam. King Chitraketu was flying by on a celestial airplane, and he saw Parvati, the wife of Lord Shiva, sitting on Lord Shiva's lap. And he just started laughing. He thought it was so funny. Lord Shiva's the great renunciate, and here he's got his wife on his lap. So actually, it was like a little joke between him and Lord Shiva, kind of a man-to-man kind of a joke, I guess. But Parvati got really angry, and she made an assumption that Chitraketu was offending her husband. They were kind of having a little joke together, and she cursed King Chitraketu. So that led to another whole story in Shrimad Bhagavatam. So, sometimes these are pastimes that help unfold the leelas of Shrimad Bhagavatam, right? So of course you might be thinking, what about this one? Maharaj Parikshit was out in the forest hunting. He's thirsty and he stopped in a hermitage and he asked this sage for some water. And the sage was deep in meditation. He was in samadhi. But Maharaj Parikshit thought the sage was ignoring him. So he got angry, which was totally out of character for him. He was a great king and a great devotee. And he took his bow and he draped this dead snake around the shoulder of the sage, and then he just walked away. But then the son of the sage, Shringi, who was a very unqualified, immature, prone to assumptions type of a young boy, he got angry, so immature, and he cursed Maharaj Parikshit, right? To die within 7 days. Maybe you know the story. So, in one sense, these are the leelas or the pastimes of the Lord. The whole Shrimad Bhagavatam wouldn't have been spoken, right? If that hadn't happened, but still these pastimes can still be understood on different levels. What about Dhruva Maharaj, right? He wanted to sit on his father's lap. His father, the king, is sitting on the throne. He's got the other son on his lap. And Dhruva Maharaj is trying to climb up there and sit next to his brother on his father's lap. And his stepmother, who was quite envious, said, "You can't sit on the lap of your father, the king, until you come back and take another birth in my womb." Whoa. She had a lot of baggage, right? But still, if that hadn't happened, Dhruva wouldn't have gone out to the forest. He wouldn't have met Narada Muni. He wouldn't have had the darshan of Lord Vishnu. So in Shrimad Bhagavatam, we can see that often these misunderstandings can bring some pastime of the Lord. What about Bhagavad Gita, right? Krishna's dear friend and devotee Arjuna, if he hadn't come under illusion and lamentation, then Krishna wouldn't have had the chance to speak Bhagavad Gita on the battle of Kurukshetra for the benefit of all of us and the whole world. And here's another one I was thinking of. If Srila Prabhupada had been successful at Jhansi, where he was given a property, like a beautiful mansion type of stately home, if he'd been successful there, if the governor's wife hadn't usurped the property that Srila Prabhupada was using, maybe Srila Prabhupada wouldn't have even come to New York. So sometimes, of course, these are pastimes of the Lord and his great devotees. But what about, point I'm making, what about in our own lives? Sometimes if we can try to zoom out and don't make the assumption, don't make the assumption about Krishna hates me and I'm never going to be able to do this and I'm never going to be successful and why did this happen? But try to zoom out and try to see in this difficult situation, whatever it may be, Krishna may have some plan for me as well, that I never would have considered going in this direction if that hadn't happened. And, I think we've all heard these amazing stories of extraordinary people who say things like, that cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. Or if I hadn't, done this or done that, some very tragic, difficult thing, that I never would be in the place where I am today. So try to zoom out, try to see that Krishna may have some plan. And don't make assumptions about Krishna either. He hates me. I'm never going to be able to make any advancement. Be curious, reserve judgment, even judgment of Krishna. What can I learn from this challenging situation? That, Krishna's kindness and mercy are always there for us, even when we make a mistake. Did you ever think that Krishna's mercy is kind of like a GPS, that when we're lost, he can reroute us. He finds us and reroutes us. even if we take completely the wrong direction in our life, maybe even for a few years or a few months, still his mercy's there, and he can, by his mercy, reroute us to help us come to him if we desire it. If we want to keep avoiding him, then he's not a pushy kind of a lover. He's not even though he's the supreme controller, he's not a pushy, controlling type of a lover. He wants to, actually, just this morning, I was listening to Prabhupada speak on a talk, and he was saying sometimes the father is giving advice to the son. I mean, hopefully we've all had fathers like that. Maybe we haven't. And the son keeps saying, no, no, I want to do this, and I want to do this. And finally the father says, okay, do it. You do it. You do what you want, right? But then sometimes that child has to learn the hard way. I know I've been like that many times, or probably most of the time in my life, that I have to learn the hard way. I can't learn just by hearing. I have to learn with some slaps, or what Prabhupada calls pinpricks of this world. So yeah, Krishna's always encouraging us, saying to us, what does he say in the Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter, 66th verse? Don't worry, take shelter of me, don't worry. And he says, like a GPS, he reroutes us. So the point is, try to be a patient observer of circumstance, of what you see, of what you hear. Try to see, zoom out and try to see with an eye attachment, rather than just reacting or blurting out or jumping in or making an assumption and jumping to an often mistaken conclusion. So this is what I'm offering, that maybe we can just try to pause. Maybe it's a moment to just say nothing, just pause and try to zoom out and see the big picture, or see what might be the long-term effect of this if I can zoom out. What will be the effect if I react versus observing, waiting, inquiring? Maybe not inquiring right at that moment, but when the moment presents itself, maybe a little bit later. Sometimes to inquire very innocently, we can clarify misunderstandings. I'm thinking you were upset with me because yesterday. And no, it's just my brother called with this terrible news, or I broke my finger, I'm in terrible pain. So maybe I'm taking something totally personally, right? That has absolutely nothing to do with me. And we can do that with our kids, with our partner, with Krishna. Krishna, why did you let this happen? This or that. So someone may seem to be acting out to me. Maybe that person is hurting for another reason entirely. And instead of reacting, can I just pause and wait and listen? Deep listening is such a rare commodity in our culture, right? We're so full of talk. But deep listening, even if, allowing for those moments of silence, are so, so rare. And and then at the right time, at the right moment, maybe inquire, what's the pain that you're feeling? Anything you'd like to share, But if I react with blame, you said this or that, someone may get offended, right? But if I'm just expressing what I'm feeling, how can someone get offended, right? If I'm starting with, well, you and you and you and you said this and you did that, and well, then people might react with, oh yeah, well, you and you, but if I'm just expressing my feelings, I'm somehow feeling that you're not happy with me. And are you thinking this? Because I'm kind of feeling that you're upset about what happened in the meeting yesterday. Something like that, the story of the emperor's new clothes. I think everybody knows that story. Well, I think it's a really good example, because you've got this simple, innocent child, right, who had the curiosity to say, and it's in a mood of innocence and simplicity. He said, that emperor doesn't have any clothes on, right? But it seems like the adults were afraid to speak up, and maybe they were assuming that if they spoke up, that they would upset the status quo in the kingdom, or maybe they were assuming that they could lose their position in the palace of the emperor. So there's a way to be curious and not accusative, you know, to be curious with a childlike sincerity and simplicity. And sometimes that can help heal a situation or really touch someone's heart. Sincerity, simplicity, humility. The other day, Radhanath Swami said something very wise, that these are like, I thought this was so beautiful. He said, sincerity, simplicity, humility are like digestive enzymes that help us be able to digest and assimilate transcendental knowledge. So, do you ever notice sometimes in the Krishna Consciousness Society, we're so much in our heads and we have so many verses and this and that we've learned, but sometimes maybe someone even has a lot of transcendental knowledge, and maybe it is transcendental knowledge, but maybe the way they're holding it or the way they're communicating it is not digestible either to themselves or to the other people they're trying to communicate to. So these are the digestive enzymes that help us assimilate and digest transcendental knowledge. So here's a question. Should we be curious about everything? Have you ever heard, of course, everyone's heard curiosity killed the cat, right? So we don't want to kill any cats. We're nonviolent people. But does curiosity always kill the cat? Sometimes it actually does. Like, we can be curious about the latest social media, the latest gossip about Beyonce. Did you know Beyonce's doing country music now? Or how about Donald Trump? Or maybe the latest scandal in ISKCON. You can read about it on social media. You can read a lot of criticism of devotees, Vaishnavas. And, like talking behind someone's back, telling the wrong person for the wrong reason, just to share some juicy tidbit of gossip, you know, like, regarding the world situation. Of course, we don't want to be oblivious, right? We don't want to be fools. Radhanath Swami has a funny story that he was doing some outreach at a college campus after he spent a number of years at New Vrindavan, and he started speaking to the students about the Vietnam War, and you don't want to get sent to Vietnam, and they're all like scratching their heads. Well, hey, buddy, the Vietnam War ended 5 years ago, so we don't want to be oblivious to the world situation, but sometimes we can be informed by just catching a glance at the headlines. Breaking news can also break our hearts, right? And of course, if that's your field, right? If you work in government, if you work in education or counseling, or you're helping in the temple with devotee care, then your work or your service is to be kept abreast of things. And so take what I'm saying in context. Context is all important. And I hope you'll understand the context of what I'm saying. So if there's a problem, bring it to the right person who can try to help and not harm someone's life or break their heart by gossip, by innuendo, he said, she said, or making some assumption. Sometimes people's lives are ruined by gossip or even neglect. If something helpful could have been said or done, sometimes a tragic situation could have been avoided. So on that note, I want to share a story with all of you, and I'm going to close with this story and then ask you to speak and discuss in the breakouts what you think about this story. And so here's the story. This is a story of a young couple. They were living in Vietnam, and it was at the time of the Vietnam War. And the husband was called away to fight in the war. And at that time, his young wife was pregnant. And he was gone for a few years. And then he came back, and he had a little son, and they were so happy that he was back and he lived through the terrible situation. And so his wife went to the market. This was their culture. She went to the market to get some fruits and grains to make a offering of gratitude to their ancestors. And while she was gone, the young father was trying to get his little son, who he'd never seen before, he's trying to get the little boy to call him daddy. And he was saying, "Call me daddy. Just call me daddy. I want to hear you call me daddy." And the son said to his father, who he didn't know, he said, "You're not my daddy." He said, "The one who comes at night, that's my daddy." And so the husband was totally shocked, totally thrown. And he just didn't know what to think. He was upset. He was completely beside himself. What? The one who comes at night is my daddy? And so when his wife came back to celebrate, he just left. And he just went to the bar, and he was just hanging in the bar and drinking and drinking, drinking. And then he came back late that night, and she didn't know what was wrong. They had been so happy just a moment before. She didn't know what was wrong. And then every day he would just go to the bar, hang out at the bar, stay at the bar until late and come back. And he was doing this day after day. And then finally, she just couldn't take it anymore. She didn't know what he was holding in his heart. She didn't know what had upset him. And she just couldn't handle the pain. And she just jumped in the river, and she took her own life. And so then after that, here he is, this young father left with a little child, and his wife was gone. And he took the match to light the lamp at night in their little hut. And he saw, when he lit the lamp, the shadow came on the wall of the hut. And his little son said, "That's my daddy, the one who comes at night. That's my daddy." And this young father realized his mistake. So it's a painful story. So this is the first breakout question I want to give to you in your breakout groups. What do you think? How could this tragedy have been avoided? Whose fault was it? How could the situation have turned out differently? Yeah, how could the whole painful situation have been avoided? So that's the first breakout question. And then Damodar Priya will give us the other one as well. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Rukmini Walker. I think I can speak for everyone that there was barely any chat going on because everybody was so focused on what you were saying and just so moved by your soft heart and everything you were sharing with us. So yes, we're going to be moving into breakout rooms now. And just to share the second question, which is in the chat in Zoom and has also been shared in our Urban Devi WhatsApp groups. So please take a look there. The second question is, have you ever held something inside that could be shared with one trusted person and could help you change the whole trajectory of your situation? So I'm going to pause the recording there so we can go into breakout. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. This is our questions and answers and reflection section of Urban Devi. And just want to remind you that we are going to be sharing about the story that we heard. What were your thoughts? How could that have been avoided? How could the situation have turned out differently? Or, just your reflections of your time together in the breakout rooms. So please go ahead and raise your virtual hands and let us know who would like to share first. Jeannie? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, everyone. I just want to say, on a very positive note, I assumed that I would not see someone ever again, and I was blessed and surprised to see my Gail. And I just want to say, I'm so happy. So with that, I was very, very blessed, and we all agreed that assuming it's not the way to go at all, for either party or parties. We also agreed that both were somewhat at fault, in their own way. The wife for not questioning the husband for not questioning the wife. And overall, we also felt, very sad for them. However, we believe that, if they were able to open up just a bit, maybe none of that would have occurred. So that's how we all took it. And, obviously, we all agree that, when one assumes, I have mentioned it, and I just hope it's not out of line. If it is, please excuse me. I feel that assume is an acronym in itself, and on a very personal note, it has caused me more than, not aggravation, but more than sadness and what if and blah blah. So the older I'm getting, I'm coming to terms with that. So that's how we felt, and I thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. And is there anybody else that have anything to share? Or Rukmini, do you have any responses to what Jeannie shared?
Let's see if I saw a hand pop up.
Yes, Nancy. Nancy, please unmute yourself and share.
Oh, she can't be quiet, can she? It was wonderful to be in the breakout room. I was really inspired by the three other women that were there. It was lovely. Yeah, they were both wrong. It's a way. Oh, we just came up pretty quickly with that. Just in that is that phrase, when I assume I make an ass out of you and me, right? But I think that the second question, we brought up some really good thoughts about having to have sort of discernment and balance. That it's not necessarily great to go around and share everything with everybody, but it's really important to make sure the trusted friend is somebody that will love us even if we're wrong. And to make sure that we don't stuff our feelings, and try to make sure that we are able to express ourselves, but we have to sometimes pause and reflect first on what's my true feelings. Am I just hungry and angry, lonely, tired, or is it really something that needs to be expressed? So, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Nancy. And thank you for reminding us about that. So that's the acronym HALT, right? Can you just say it again?
HALT is, I don't want to be hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And if I remember when I'm getting sort of twisted, I will think, did I eat something today? Did I get enough rest or whatever before I start to go on a rampage and tear up my world? So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, so that's a great reminder to check in with ourselves first before we make assumptions about the things that are going on outside of us. Does anybody else have a reflection or even a question, if there's like a circumstance that this is bringing up for you that you'd like to share with Rukmini and get her feedback? I wasn't in the breakout rooms. I know I don't get to do that because I'm kind of managing everything. So I just wanted to share that for me, what really touched me about what you shared today, Rukmini, is that this is actually happening in my real life. So we have a neighbor who we've had difficulties with, and we don't communicate with. And then recently we had a large limb from his tree, the size of a tree, come down on our property and destroy our fence. And for the past month, we hadn't heard from him. There was no kind of communication whatsoever. And I was really struggling with that. And some of my, God-centered friends gave me the really great advice of saying, like, pray for him, like pray for his heart, pray for him, not just praying for your circumstances, but pray for him. And Krishna magically, yesterday, while my husband Gopal was in the back trying to put a makeshift fence to keep the neighbor's dogs out of our yard, the neighbor came over and started speaking to my husband. and kind of explaining his side of the story of his viewpoint and how he thought that, you know, that we were looking down on him, that we were angry at him, that we had, so all the assumptions that he had of us. And there was just so much clarification. Obviously, we still have to have discernment, as Nancy said, and kind of take with a touch of salt some of the things that he says, because you know, not, maybe he's not being 100% truthful. At the same time, it was just that the fact that my husband was able to stand there and be in the state of curiosity, as you said, and be open-hearted as much as he could, and hear him and be sincere. And this man who we've been neighbors now for like a year and a half, and this is the longest conversation he's had with either of us. And he spoke to my husband for like 15, 20 minutes. And that wouldn't have been possible if my husband went into the conversation right away with the assumptions, as opposed to being curious and genuinely wanting to hear what he had to say. So it just thought it was so eerie that you're literally going to be talking about this today, and then this happened yesterday. And it's just one of those, I feel like one of those things where it's like, okay, this has to be reinforced again and again. So thank you so much. That was my kind of personal experience with this. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share? Or Rukmini, if you have anything you wanted to say?
I saw some hands go up.
Oh, did I miss a hand? And if you're feeling shy, you can also write it in the chat, because that's something that can be done as well. I actually did have, oh, there we go. We have a question. Leela Kishori, Devitasi, please go ahead.
Haribol, hi. Thank you so much for just a wonderful presentation. And it's not a question, it's just the second part of it, because we didn't get to talk about that, but where you said, have you ever held something inside that you could have told someone you trusted, and it probably would have changed the whole trajectory? And I was thinking about how important senior devotees and Shiksha Guru are, that, you know, boots on the ground know you. Because when I've done that and really said, and how important it is to have at least one person that you can just say it to exactly how you're feeling about it. Exactly, no filter, just this is how I see it. And like, this is what I want to do about it. And then for me, it's like, I think about like when you're on the playing field, like if you're playing a sport, you can only see the play that's coming at you. You can see the ball that's being served. You can see the person maybe a little bit to the right and left of you. But when you tell someone you trust, it's like they're sitting up high. You know, like they have like that skybox view. So they're seeing you and all the rest of the players, and they can kind of go, yeah, no, they really didn't serve that at your head. Like, you know, they just missed. And, you know, and maybe maybe you should have been weaving to the left a little bit, because weren't you really supposed to be over there? And it helps a lot to just get that different view and be open to the fact that when you're really right in a situation, basically all you can do is address what's right in front of you, you know, and it's so helpful to have other people who can give you a wider view. So that was all that I had.
Beautiful reflection. Thank you so much. Really beautiful, really important.
Yes, thank you so much, Leela Kishori Devitasi. And for those of you, I mean, I know, so again, the Shiksha Guru is like that person who teaches you, not just the initiating guru. So I really love that reminder, because we have so many gurus around us. As even Jeannie mentioned in the chat earlier that sometimes her little 3-year-old children that she teaches can be her gurus and teaching her ways to be. And we have our dear Gail. Please, Gail, unmute yourself and share.
Hi, Krishna, everybody. Yeah, just back when you were speaking, Mother Rukmini, you made a distinction between appreciation and gratitude. That it seemed like you were saying that appreciation precedes gratitude. I have an idea of what that distinction is, but I need to get it confirmed by you.
I want to hear from you first. What's your idea?
So you go first. No, okay. My idea.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
My idea is that when there is appreciation, you are acknowledging something that you value, right? And then gratitude comes in when you are then thankful for that thing that you are valuing. So appreciation, I'm thinking, is more like just recognizing something that you see as of value or of importance. And then, gratitude is then when you're like feeling grateful of that valuable thing coming into your life.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I think that gratitude, that appreciation is kind of like the first inkling, and I think we so often don't express it, like you're at the temple and you walk by the person that has been cooking that noon offering for 17 years, or your husband takes out the garbage and you never even you know what I mean. It could be small or large or anything in between, but I think it needs to be expressed more, so people have to know. And then I believe that, yeah, it's the first, to me it seems like it's the first inkling of gratitude, and gratitude is like a state of the heart, that here's something nice, that
Gratitude is like an expression of that appreciation, would you say?
I think appreciation is like the first inkling of a notice. I'm noticing, wow, it's a
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful day. Thank you, Krishna. Or, here's somebody who brought in the paper or did the laundry or took out the garbage, or someone who's been cooking the offering at the temple, or, someone who's been doing the flowers forever. And I never even stopped to, or someone picks up a piece of, in the hallway or at the temple, and, thank you so much. Thank you for noticing. Thank you for caring, Yeah. Here's something I just read that's nice, that gratitude is when memory is stored in the heart and not in the mind. So, yeah, I think gratitude is like this kind of like bank where I'm keeping it. It's in the heart. It's like maybe an inkling of something new comes up in the mind, but then it gets stored, as an appreciation. Maybe this is the way I see
Oh,
it.
yeah, you get affected, actually.
You have like an inkling of something that, wow, thank you so much. And maybe I have never expressed it. Maybe I should express it now. But then to me, gratitude is like that bank where it's held in the heart. And here this says that, yeah, gratitude is when memory is stored in the heart and not in the mind. So, you can keep going back to that bank account of gratitude. I think that's really beautiful. So it's like it keeps it's like the gift that keeps giving, right? It's not just the moment of appreciation, but it's like I can go back to it like a bank account, and I can keep pulling out and expressing and relishing and appreciating,
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was a beautiful question. Thank you, Gail. You always have deep introspections.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Gail. And I see that Lee also has their hand up. But before you share, Lee, I just wanted to briefly share that Claire put in the chat that something that she wanted to share. And she didn't want to say out loud herself. She shared this beautiful prayer by St. Francis that says, "O divine Lord, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love, for it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life." So I just thought that was so beautiful.
Thank you so much.
And Lee, yes, please go ahead.
So I wanted to piggyback on the conversation that Gail and Rukmini were having, that it made me think that, with the body, it says you are what you eat. And I think with your heart, it can be you are what you pay attention to. And I think there are many things that are like useful and enjoyable and that will draw you into them, right? Rukmini, like you were saying, make it become part of your heart. But for me, I'll speak for myself. But for me, I can be very preoccupied with like worries, or I'm very quick to self-criticize. And those can become part of myself then, if that's what I let in. So I can have very skittery attention. My mind can go in a million different ways, but I think that practice of studying the mind and paying attention really helps me then avoid assumptions. I'm not very good at it, but I'm hoping to get better.
Beautiful, very beautiful. Yeah, this is what I was reminded of this when you were speaking, Lee. To whatever extent a person has become truly elevated, gratitude will be found residing in his heart. Bhakti Devi will never appear in a small-hearted person devoid of gratitude. And then here's another one that I think is really good. Gratitude is liberating. It is subversive. It helps us realize that we are sufficient, and that realization frees us. So yeah, I think it's what you're saying, Lee, to just pause and just to take a deep breath and not react, but just pause. And then we can be able to appreciate, or see some kind of a silver lining. And maybe we don't see the silver lining right in that moment, but maybe we're pausing and not reacting in a negative way. But very beautiful.
Yes, thank you, Lee. As I wrote in the chat, there's just so many gems. And I see that Sarah has her hand up. Sarah, please share.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much for the talk. I feel like Krishna is really speaking to me through this talk today. Yeah, I was just thinking a bit in the breakout room and thinking a bit now or it's kind of been on my mind recently, kind of balancing, when to share, when not to share, with people based off of like, how long should I sit with how I feel before I communicate to like, I don't know, avoid, more complicated communication or things like that. But I guess something that I'm kind of wondering how to be better about is, I think better communication leads to this, but I notice people around me, are a little duplicitous sometimes, which, that maybe they act one way in front of me and act a different way when I'm not around. And then that kind of like, makes me do the same thing. And I know that that's not productive for, my spiritual life and even just like my material relationships. So that's something I'm struggling with. But then something kind of like on top of that is like, if I want to like just fully like disengage from a situation or disengage from a person or something, sometimes I don't know if that's better than actually having just a conversation with them about what's going on. I don't know if that makes sense, but just kind of like, and it makes me feel, I guess, yeah, it just makes me feel vulnerable and scared and insecure. And like, there's like this people pleaser within me that's like, I need everybody to like me. I need everybody to like, I can't have a problem with anyone. I don't want anyone to have a problem with me. So it's like, how do I share how I feel if I'm hurt, I don't know. So, yeah.
That's a beautiful introspection. Thank you so much for expressing it and being vulnerable. Sometimes I just feel like sometimes the time is just not right to say something. But sometimes if you kind of can get your space and pray about it, because sometimes so often we have our little head space and what we think, but if we pray about it, Krishna can give us some other insight, like what is that person holding or what's that person's story? Or so sometimes, yeah, the time is not right, but maybe if you can go back later and say, hey, I was just feeling this and maybe I misunderstood, but help me understand, and then it's again, you're just speaking in those I sentences and you're not speaking blame, but you're just, and your feelings are authentic. And, someone may say, oh, no, I wasn't thinking that at all. Or someone will say, well, I thought you didn't like me because yesterday, or, it could be anything, right? So I think sometimes, yeah, the time is not right, but pray about it and then figure out how to go back in an open-hearted way. Or with some people, you just can't have that kind of open-hearted relationship because they just don't want to go to that place. It was interesting for me hearing Damodar Priya's story about the neighbor, because there was like a little inkling of a heart opening. I think that came through prayer. But then, maybe her husband Gopal wasn't able to say everything in response, but just the fact that they were talking, and just the fact that he was listening deeply, shows a lot of respect. And maybe there's a way to come back and help to heal it in little baby steps. So I hope that's helpful. But
Thank you.
yeah, those, that bestie can't be with everyone, but a little heart opening through prayer. I think prayer is very important, and those pauses and reflection, because we have such a talky culture, right? And we're always talking, but we have not so much listening space and prayer space. Is that helpful?
I think so. I think, I think praying and then being patient is the next part of it also, that sometimes, yeah, also very like, I don't want my relationships with Krishna, and I also don't want my relationships with people to be like transactional. And I think, yeah, patience is also like really closely tied into like kind of everything that we're talking about too.
Yeah. And sometimes, again, just sometimes like a little random act of kindness, if it's temple situation or people, in the community, sometimes you can just, if someone you feel like is a little bit prickly or whatever, you can just give them a flower. Say, this is from Radharani's feet.
Yeah.
Just wanted you to have it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can just like bring down the whole battlefield or whatever. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
And thank you, Rukmini, that you just briefly heard, and that was a very abbreviated version of the conversation they had, and that's exactly what happened. Is that after he shared that conversation with me, I said, "But did you tell him about this? Did you say about this?" And he was like, "No, that it was not the time. I wanted him to feel heard, and I wanted to at least get the ball rolling so that we can have a conversation
Beautiful.
before I bring up more things in terms of like things that have hurt us, like grievances that we may have that we want to work through." He was like, that wasn't the time of the place. So you hit the nail on the head on that. And I also just, Sarah, what you shared made me think that a lot of the things that I've been dealing with, the prayer that's really helped me is the serenity prayer. I've been praying that a lot, and I actually got a poster of it and put it in my room. And for those who aren't familiar with it, I'm just going to read it really briefly. It says, "God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." So I've been praying that a lot.
That's very, very deep. Very, very deep. Thank you so much.
And actually, Rukmini, we're in our final time where you're going to take us into the end. So I just wanted on behalf of everyone to thank you again for taking the time to bring us into this open-hearted curiosity space so that we can feel free to share our hearts with you, and then to just learn so much from you. We were just also so grateful. I've heard a couple of messages of just providing us this virtual space of Urban Devi every month that we can gather and kind of come together. So thank you again. And wonderful. The floor is yours to finish.
Who knew that there would be a gift from COVID, right? But Anutama and I were just talking this morning. This is one of the gifts of COVID. The world has changed, and I know there's someone here from Sweden. Yeah, it's amazing. People from all over the world. So thank you all so much for being here. It's a sacred time every month for Damodar Priya and for me. And I wanted to share that next Urban Devi, if you want to mark your calendar, will be on Sunday, August 11th. And my dear friend Vidarbha Sutta will be leading the session, and she's going to talk about the inspiring tale of Amara. And here's a little description. A captivating story of Amara, whose name means deathless, and her extraordinary journey of resilience and redemption. Kidnapped by shadows and dragged into a world of darkness, this story is about Amara's struggle to reclaim her inner light. So that sounds like, there's Scarlett in Sweden. It sounds like that will be helpful for all of us. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Scarlett, for being here all the way from the north of Sweden, I think the north. Thank you, everyone. So grateful. Hare Krishna.